The dawn on Viridian 9 bathed the plateau in soft golden light. The twin moons had faded, leaving the alien landscape awash in a quiet, almost sacred glow. The trials were over, or at least the most dangerous ones. Lyra stood at the center of the plateau, her improved armor still humming softly with energy, a reminder of both human ingenuity and the ancient power it had enhanced. Queen Zira approached, her massive form moving with the grace of a predator, yet carrying the air of thoughtful consideration. The glow of the improved armor reflected off her scales, showing every line and enhancement that Lyra had painstakingly added. The alien warriors remained silent, watching their queen and the human engineer with cautious curiosity. "You have endured much," Zira said, her voice calm but commanding. "Your courage and understanding have proven to me that humans are unlike any other species I have encountered. You honor strength by making it stronger. That is unusual." Lyra bowed her head slightly, exhaustion tugging at her limbs but pride shining in her eyes. "I only did what humans do," she said quietly. "We see what is strong and we improve it, not to dominate but to understand, to protect, and to grow." Zira's eyes glimmered with something like approval. For a moment, the plateau was silent, filled only with the hum of energy from the armor and the wind brushing over the rocky cliffs. Then slowly the queen raised her massive clawed hand and pointed to the horizon. "There is a choice before you," Zira said. "Your people have touched a world that was mine. You have proven that your kind has strength, ingenuity, and courage. You may leave as observers or you may remain to learn. And perhaps, to work alongside us." Lyra's heart leapt. This was more than she had dared hope. "Work alongside you?" she asked. "Yes," Zira replied, her tone deliberate. "Humans have shown a capacity to grow, to adapt, and to improve. That is a power worth recognizing. But cooperation requires trust, understanding, and respect. If you and your people are willing, then together we may achieve something greater than either of us alone." Lyra straightened, her exhaustion forgotten. "We are willing," she said firmly. "Humans have always thrived when we cooperate, when we learn from others, and when we face the unknown together. We can learn from your people, and perhaps share what we know as well." The alien queen tilted her head, regarding the human carefully. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "Very well. Let the beginning of this alliance be witnessed. Let your people know that courage and ingenuity can bridge worlds." Lyra smiled faintly, feeling a sense of triumph. Not because she had survived the trials, but because humanity had been recognized for what it truly was. A species capable of creativity, courage, and innovation. At the base, the humans watched the exchange through remote sensors. Dr. Hayes exhaled in relief. "She's accepting them. She's actually listening to us," he said quietly. The other engineers and soldiers exchanged astonished glances. The impossible had happened. Humans had earned the respect of the alien queen. Zira gestured to her warriors, who moved aside, revealing the ruins below the cliffs. The ancient city, once silent and lifeless, seemed to respond to the presence of both queen and human. Energy lines pulsed faintly through the streets and towers, as if recognizing the bond now forming between species. "You will have access to knowledge that has been guarded for centuries," Zira said. "But you will also respect it. Misuse will not be tolerated. And in return, your people may share what they have learned, and together we may grow stronger." Lyra nodded. "We understand. Humans respect knowledge. We use it to survive, to improve, and to create a better future. That is our way." The queen's gaze softened further, a rare expression that few had ever witnessed. "Then it begins," she said. "A new chapter, where humans are not just visitors but collaborators." For the next several hours, the humans and alien warriors began tentative exchanges. Engineers examined alien machinery, learning from ancient designs while offering human improvements. Scientists recorded data on energy systems and environmental adaptations, and Lyra, at the center of it all, guided the process, ensuring that respect remained at the heart of every interaction. The armor, once a relic of the past, had become a symbol of cooperation. Zira walked among the humans wearing it, demonstrating its enhancements. Each movement showcased the blend of alien strength and human ingenuity. The humans marveled, not just at the armor itself, but at what it represented. The potential for two species to grow together rather than apart. As days passed, the alliance deepened. Humans learned alien techniques for energy manipulation and adaptive technology. In return, they shared innovations in structural engineering, energy storage, and environmental control. Both species discovered that the combination of human creativity and alien tradition could achieve things neither could alone. Lyra often reflected on the journey. From the moment she had touched the ancient armor, she had faced fear, danger, and doubt. She had survived tests designed to break even the strongest of creatures. And now, standing alongside Queen Zira, she realized that humanity had not only proven itself but had opened a new path. One where humans were recognized not for their weapons or strength, but for their courage, ingenuity, and spirit. The alien queen, once distant and unknowable, had become a mentor of sorts. She challenged Lyra constantly, encouraging her to think beyond human limits. And in return, Lyra showed Zira the value of human adaptability, creativity, and collaboration. The final symbol of this newfound alliance came one evening as the sun set over the plateau. Zira raised her hand and the improved armor emitted a brilliant light that swept across the cliffs and the ruins. The pulse of energy traveled across the plateau, signaling to both humans and aliens that a new era had begun, one where species worked together, learning from each other, and building a future stronger than either could achieve alone. Lyra stood at the edge of the plateau, looking out over the ruins she had first explored. The same ruins that had once been silent and lifeless now thrummed with energy, a testament to what humans and aliens could achieve when curiosity, courage, and respect guided their actions. Dr. Hayes approached her, his eyes reflecting awe and pride. "You've done something incredible," he said. "Not just for humans, but for both our species." Lyra smiled, the weight of exhaustion and triumph settling over her. "It wasn't just me," she said. "It was all of us, humans and aliens. Together we improved what was strong. Together we created something new, and that is our greatest strength." Zira stepped forward, the improved armor gleaming softly in the twilight. "You have shown me the power of your kind," she said. "And in doing so you have earned a place among those worthy of trust and collaboration. Let this be the beginning of a future where humans are recognized for their true potential." Lyra bowed respectfully, feeling the full weight of the Queen's words. For centuries, humans had been underestimated by countless civilizations. But here, on this distant planet, humanity's courage and ingenuity had been seen, acknowledged, and celebrated. The plateau was silent for a moment, the hum of energy from the armor fading into the evening air. Then Zira spoke again, her voice carrying a promise. "The future is uncertain. There will be challenges, conflicts, and tests yet to come. But now we face them not as adversaries, but as partners. Humans, you have proven yourselves worthy." Lyra straightened, the glow of the armor reflecting in her eyes. "And we will continue to prove it," she said. "With courage, ingenuity, and respect, we will face whatever comes next." The twin moons rose once more, casting their silvery light over the plateau. The ruins, once a monument to a forgotten past, now stood as a symbol of collaboration, hope, and the strength of two species working together. Lyra knew this was only the beginning. There would be challenges ahead, obstacles to overcome, and discoveries yet to be made. But she also knew that humans had earned their place in the wider universe, not through domination or fear, but through creativity, courage, and the willingness to improve and respect what was strong. As the first night of the new alliance settled over Viridian 9, Lyra allowed herself a moment of quiet reflection. She had faced the unknown, challenged the impossible, and been recognized by one of the most powerful beings she had ever encountered. She had proven the essence of humanity, that even in the vast, strange universe humans could rise, innovate, and earn their place among the stars. And as she looked at Queen Zira, standing proudly in the improved armor that had started it all, Lyra smiled. This was more than victory, it was a beginning. A future where humans dared to improve, dared to explore, and dared to stand proud in the face of the unknown. The wind blew softly across the plateau, carrying with it the faint hum of energy, a reminder that courage, ingenuity, and respect could create bonds stronger than fear or power. Humanity had been seen, acknowledged, and celebrated, and in that recognition lay the promise of a brighter, bolder future. Lyra raised her hand, feeling the warmth of the armor, the strength of her people, and the presence of the alien queen beside her. Together they were not just survivors, they were innovators, collaborators, and pioneers. Together, They had proven that the human spirit could illuminate even the darkest corners of the galaxy. The story of the armor, of the queen, and of the human who dared to. The halls of the Virelian palace were silent, yet heavy with tension. The grand chamber, once filled with laughter and music, now held only shadows and echoes of a lost glory. At the center of it all lay the shattered pieces of the queen's battle armor. Once a symbol of unmatched power and elegance, the armor now looked like a broken relic, scattered in fragments across the polished floor. Queen Seraphine stood before it, her tall frame rigid with frustration and disappointment. She traced the jagged edges of a gauntlet with her fingers, her mind racing with memories of past battles. The armor had not only protected her in war, but had represented the strength and unity of the Virelian Empire. Losing it was more than a defeat. It was a mark of vulnerability she had never shown before. Her advisors and engineers crowded the room, their expressions a mixture of anxiety and shame. They had tried everything: alloy reinforcements, energy-infused bonds, even experimental nanofusion techniques. Every attempt failed. The armor's structure was too damaged, too complex. And yet the Queen's eyes, sharp and unyielding, searched for a solution. She could not allow this defeat to define her reign. "Your Majesty," said High Engineer Varen, bowing low, "we have exhausted all methods known to Virelia. The armor cannot be restored." His voice was steady, but there was a hint of fear beneath it. Fear of her reaction, fear of failure. The Queen's gaze did not waver. "All methods known to Virelia, yes. But what of methods unknown to Virelia?" Her tone was calm, but it carried the weight of authority. She needed more than skill. She needed innovation. Something different. Something unexpected. A murmur went through the court. Humans were known for their unpredictability. Their technology, crude by Virelian standards, often relied on intuition, imagination, and improvisation, qualities Virelians considered chaotic and unreliable. Yet there were whispers of human ingenuity that sometimes defied logic, producing results that even the most advanced alien minds could not predict. Perhaps. Varen hesitated, choosing his words carefully. "There is one human engineer, Marcus. He has worked with other civilizations and achieved things no one else could." The Queen raised an eyebrow. Marcus. She had heard of him. Clever, confident and stubborn. A human who thrived on challenges and refused to follow rules he deemed unnecessary. The thought of a human meddling with her armor made her chest tighten with both irritation and curiosity. "Bring him here," she commanded, her voice final. "Let him see what others could not fix." 2 days later, Marcus arrived at the palace. He stepped out of his transport, a small but sturdy vessel, carrying nothing but his toolkit and a confident smile. His human eyes swept the grand hall, taking in the towering columns, intricate mosaics, and the scattered fragments of the legendary armor. The Virelian guards, tall and imposing, stared at him with a mixture of suspicion and disbelief. "This is the human?" one of them whispered. "He is not even armed. How can he possibly restore Her Majesty's armor?" Marcus chuckled softly. "I don't need weapons to do my work," he replied. "I just need a problem and a mind willing to let me solve it." The Queen entered shortly after, her presence filling the hall with authority. Her gaze locked on Marcus. "I hope your human confidence is not misplaced," she said. "This armor is more than metal. It is my legacy, my symbol, and my strength. Fail and you will fail the Empire." Marcus bowed slightly. "I don't take pride in confidence, Your Majesty. I take pride in results." Her lips pressed into a thin line. The tension between them was immediate. A human standing in her palace, daring to speak with such assurance. It was bold, perhaps too bold. Marcus examined the armor with keen eyes. He crouched near the pieces, turning fragments over in his hands, feeling the texture of torn alloys, broken circuits, and scorched energy conduits. He murmured. "This is more than just damaged. It's complicated." One of the Virelian engineers scoffed. "Complicated? That is an understatement. This is impossible." Marcus looked up. "Impossible is just a word. It doesn't account for creativity." The Queen watched him closely, her arms crossed. She wanted to scold him for his audacity, but something in his calm confidence made her pause. He approached the work not with fear but with curiosity and determination. A human mind untethered by convention was exactly what might succeed where Virelians had failed. He set to work immediately, sketching designs, analyzing materials, and testing small fragments with tools the Virelians did not recognize. Marcus worked methodically but also intuitively, Combining logic with imagination, he melted alloys, infused energy conduits with adaptive circuits, and reinforced joints with flexible but stronger compounds. By the third day, the armor began to take shape. Not as it was before, but better. Sleeker, stronger, more versatile. Marcus had integrated human innovation with Varelian craftsmanship, creating a hybrid that exceeded expectations. The Queen watched in silence, her thoughts a storm of admiration and irritation. She could not deny the progress, yet it stung her pride that a human, a so-called inferior species, was improving something that symbolized her power. One evening, Marcus worked late, adjusting the armor's energy matrix. The Queen entered silently, her gaze studying him. "You've been working non-stop," she observed. "Do you not tire?" Marcus looked up, smiling faintly. "Tired? Maybe. Distracted by how much potential this armor has?" "Never," her brow furrowed. "You speak too freely, human. You do not understand the weight of this armor. It is not merely protection. It carries the legacy of my reign." "I understand perfectly," Marcus replied calmly. "And I also understand that legacy means little if the armor cannot stand the test of time." "My work ensures it will." The Queen's eyes narrowed. For a moment she wanted to scold him, to remind him of his place. Instead, she found herself studying his methods. The human approached problems in ways she could not predict, seeing possibilities where her engineers saw dead ends. It was both infuriating and fascinating. Days turned into a week. Marcus continued his work, combining human improvisation with Varelian precision. Small tests revealed surprising results. The armor's joints moved with greater flexibility, its energy systems were more efficient, and its durability exceeded anything in the Empire's history. The court began to whisper. "The human is succeeding," they murmured. Some feared it, others marveled at it, but all watched the Queen for her reaction. One morning, the Queen entered the workshop and found Marcus adjusting the final energy conduits. He looked up with a grin. "It's ready for a full test, Your Majesty," he said. She studied the armor, gleaming and powerful, yet with a subtle elegance, Marcus had added. Her chest tightened. She wanted to speak words of reprimand to assert her authority, yet she could not deny the truth. The armor was restored, better than ever. "And if I find a flaw?" she asked, her tone sharp, masking the curiosity she could not hide. "Then we fix it," Marcus replied simply. For the first time in many months, the Queen felt a spark of hope. The human had done what her best engineers could not. Yet her mind remained alert, cautious. A mind as clever as Marcus's could also be unpredictable. She would need to test him further, and test herself and before fully trusting him. But for now the broken legacy had been mended. And in the silence of the palace workshop, the Queen realized something she had never admitted before. Perhaps humans were not as limited as Varelian tradition claimed. The night fell over the palace, and the restored armor reflected the soft light of the moons above. Marcus packed his tools, satisfied with the day's progress, unaware that the Queen had been watching him long after he finished. A storm of pride, curiosity, and subtle wrath brewed in her mind. She admired his work, yet she knew her authority could not be challenged lightly, especially not by a human. The first step was complete. The Queen's armor was restored, but the real challenge, both for Marcus and for her, was just beginning. The workshop glowed with soft blue light as Marcus made the final adjustments to the restored armor. The Queen's symbol of power, once broken and useless, now stood tall and gleaming. Its polished plates reflected the fire of the palace torches, while faint lines of energy pulsed across its surface like living veins. It was no longer just repaired. It was reborn, but Marcus was not done. He knew the Queen wanted perfection, and perfection was never easy. Varelian engineers had already declared the project impossible. What he was building was not just a repaired suit, but something new, a hybrid of alien craftsmanship and human creativity. He wiped sweat from his forehead, squinting at a diagnostic screen. Stronger joints, he muttered to himself. Energy output steady. Power conversion stable. Good. Very good. The Varelian engineers standing nearby exchanged glances. They had never seen anyone talk to himself while working as if the armor could hear. To them, Marcus's method seemed chaotic, even childish. But they could not deny the results. The Queen entered quietly. Her long steps echoed across the workshop floor, and the room fell silent. All eyes turned to her, their voices hushed. She carried herself with authority, her gaze sharp as she approached Marcus. "You have worked for days without rest," she said. "My court tells me your progress is unusual." Marcus didn't look up. He tightened a bolt on the shoulder plate before finally glancing at her. "Unusual? Maybe. But unusual often works better than expected." A faint line formed between her brows. She was not used to being spoken to so casually, especially by a human. Yet she held her temper. His words were confident but not disrespectful, and she sensed honesty in them. "You humans," she said slowly. "You rush into things, ignore the rules, and yet somehow find solutions where others see none." Marcus smiled faintly. "That's how we survive, Your Majesty. Rules are useful, but sometimes they stop you from seeing the bigger picture." Her eyes narrowed slightly. "Are you suggesting Varelians do not see the bigger picture?" Marcus paused. He could sense the weight of her question. He chose his words carefully. "I'm saying, sometimes being too focused on tradition can blind anyone, human or Varelian." The silence that followed was heavy. Some of the engineers gasped softly. Speaking of blindness in front of the Queen could have been seen as an insult. Yet, instead of lashing out, Seraphine tilted her head and studied Marcus carefully. His tone carried no mockery, only quiet conviction. The following days were filled with endless testing. Marcus adjusted the energy circuits, tuned the servos, and added new features he believed would improve the armor's performance. He introduced something called adaptive servos, small but powerful mechanisms that allowed the joints of the armor to move with greater precision and speed. The Varelians had never considered such technology. To them, simplicity and rigidity were strengths. But Marcus believed flexibility was just as important. When he demonstrated the new system to the Queen's advisors, they were stunned. The armor's arms bent smoothly, its knees flexed like living limbs, and the servos responded instantly to commands. "This is unnatural," muttered Engineer Varen, frowning. "The armor moves as if it breathes," Marcus chuckled. "Not unnatural, just alive in a way. Machines can be more than cold tools if you let them." The Queen, who had been silently observing, finally spoke. "And what if your changes make the armor unpredictable? What if it fails in battle?" Marcus met her gaze. "Then we adjust. That's what makes humans strong. We don't give up when things go wrong. We adapt." Her jaw tightened, but she did not argue. Deep down, she knew there was truth in his words. One night, Marcus worked alone. The other engineers had left, but he stayed behind, focusing on the armor's energy systems. He was connecting power conduits when he sensed someone behind him. He turned and found the Queen watching him, her arms folded. "You stay awake when others rest," she said quietly. "Why?" Marcus shrugged, smiling. "Because I'm close. When you're close to finishing something great, you don't want to stop." She stepped closer, her gaze moving over the armor. The faint glow of energy reflected in her eyes. For a long moment, she said nothing. Then, almost reluctantly, she asked, "What drives you, human? Fame, reward?" "Neither," Marcus replied. He set his tools down and leaned against the workbench. "What drives me is the challenge. Taking something everyone says is impossible and proving them wrong and, maybe, just maybe, leaving the universe a little better than I found it." The Queen's eyes lingered on him, unreadable. She was used to arrogance from her generals, obedience from her subjects, and flattery from outsiders. But this human's words carried no hidden agenda. They were simple, direct, honest. Still, her pride resisted. "You speak as though you carry wisdom, yet you are but a human. Do you not fear failure?" Marcus shook his head. "Of course I fear it, but fear doesn't stop me. It pushes me." For the first time, Seraphine felt a flicker of respect, a respect she did not want to admit even to herself. She turned away sharply. "Finish your work, human. Words will not restore my legacy. Only results will." Marcus watched her leave, a small smile tugging at his lips. "Fair enough," he whispered to himself. At last, the day came for the Queen to test the armor. The grand hall was filled with her advisors, guards, and engineers. The restored armor stood at the center, polished and shining, its energy pulsing like a heart. Marcus stepped back, wiping his hands. "It's ready," he said. The Queen approached slowly. She reached out, her fingers brushing the chest plate. For the first time in many months, hope stirred in her chest. She donned the armor piece by piece, and with each movement she felt its power returning, not just as it was, but greater. When the full suit closed around her, a surge of energy flowed through her body. The adaptive servos responded instantly, making her movement smooth and precise. The armor felt lighter, faster, yet stronger than before. "Move," Marcus instructed gently. "Try the joints. Test the energy flow." She obeyed, lifting her arms, bending her knees, turning sharply. The armor moved as if it were an extension of her body. Her steps echoed with controlled strength, each movement smoother than she remembered. Gasps filled the hall. Advisors whispered in disbelief. "It works. It truly works." The Queen's face remained calm, but inside she was torn between awe and frustration. A human had given her what her own people could not. She turned to Marcus, her voice sharp. "This armor is Varelian, yet you have made it something else, something different. How can I trust it will not betray me in battle?" Marcus met her gaze without flinching. "Because I built it with care, not pride. I built it to protect you, not just to shine. Trust it and it won't betray you." Her wrath rose, not from anger at failure, but from the sting of truth. His words struck deep, challenging her pride. She wanted to rebuke him, to remind him of his place, but instead she said nothing. Instead, she stepped forward, lifting her armored hand, and struck the floor with a resounding impact. The ground cracked beneath her, dust rising into the air. The hall trembled. The court erupted in astonishment. The Queen's armor was not only restored, it was stronger than ever. She turned back to Marcus, her expression unreadable. "You may be clever, human, but do not mistake my gratitude for weakness. You walk a dangerous path." Marcus only smiled. "Dangerous paths are the ones worth walking." Her eyes narrowed, but a faint spark, respect mixed with irritation, glimmered there. For the first time, the Queen felt something she had not in years: challenge. And Marcus, the human engineer, had brought it to her palace. The armor was restored. The test had only begun. The sun barely rose over the Varelian capital, yet the palace courtyard was already alive with activity. Servants scurried to prepare training dummies. Energy fields hummed in the air, and a small group of elite guards took positions around the perimeter. Today, the restored armor would face its first full test, and the Queen would be the one to push its limits. Marcus arrived early, his human mind already calculating possibilities. He watched the armor gleam in the morning light, its adaptive servos flexing even without movement. "Ready?" he asked, glancing at the Queen. She stepped forward, her gaze steady and commanding. The armor fitted her perfectly. "I am ready," she said, her voice calm but sharp, carrying the weight of authority that had kept an empire in order. Marcus nodded. "Good, we start simple. Basic maneuvers first." The Queen moved into position, raising her arms and flexing her knees. The armor responded immediately, almost as if it anticipated her intentions. Each movement was smooth, precise, yet powerful. Marcus watched her closely, monitoring energy levels and servos. "Impressive," he muttered. "Very impressive." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "I heard that, human. Speak only when necessary." Marcus smirked slightly. "Yes, Your Majesty." The first phase of the test involved agility exercises. Energy drones zipped around the courtyard, forcing the Queen to duck, dodge, and pivot with precise timing. The armor's adaptive servos amplified her natural movements, allowing her to respond faster than she expected. She leapt over a drone, spun in midair, and landed without a sound. A guard whispered, "It's almost as if she's moving faster than thought." Marcus noted the readings on his console. "The servos are adjusting perfectly. Energy output stable. Response time optimal." The Queen turned sharply to face him. "Do not get distracted, human. This is about skill, not numbers." "Of course," Marcus replied. Yet inside he felt a surge of pride. The armor wasn't just functioning. It was performing beyond even his expectations. Next came strength tests. The Queen was to lift weighted dummies and swing them in combat motions. The armor's enhanced structure and energy systems allowed her to handle weights that previously would have been impossible for even a fully trained Varelian warrior. The courtyard echoed with the sound of heavy impacts as she struck and moved with fluid precision. Sparks flew as energy conduits hummed and shifted to absorb shock. Each movement demonstrated not just power but efficiency. Every ounce of energy was optimized. Marcus adjusted a few minor conduits, fine-tuning the armor's response to extreme stress. "It's adapting in real time," he said quietly to himself. "Just as I hoped." The Queen paused mid-strike and looked at him. "What did you just say?" Nothing, Your Majesty, Marcus said, his grin barely concealed. Speak clearly, human. The armor adapts in real time. It learns from your movements, he admitted. It's not static, it's dynamic. Her eyes flashed with a mixture of surprise and irritation. Dynamic? You claim to have made the armor intelligent? Marcus shrugged. Intelligent in its own way. It reacts, adjusts, and supports your natural instincts. You still command it. It just listens better than your average engineer. The Queen's jaw tightened. The implication that a human could improve upon centuries of Varelian engineering pride burned within her. And yet she could not deny the truth. Every motion, every test confirmed Marcus's skill. By midday, the training escalated to combat simulations. Holographic enemies appeared across the courtyard, attacking from multiple directions. Marcus activated energy shields and guidance systems within the armor, allowing the Queen to coordinate attacks with enhanced perception. She struck and dodged, parried and countered. The armor amplified her reflexes and precision, yet it never felt like a replacement for her skill. Marcus had built something to complement her, not overshadow her, a subtle but vital difference. A group of elite guards attempted to flank her, expecting to overwhelm her with numbers. But the armor predicted the optimal movements, allowing her to redirect force efficiently. She spun, struck, and dodged with a fluidity that stunned even her own advisors. This is beyond anything I imagined, whispered Varen to a fellow engineer. No human should be capable of this. And yet, the Queen noticed Marcus's careful monitoring. You are too involved, human. Should I be fighting alone or with your guidance? Marcus met her gaze steadily. I am here to ensure the armor performs at its best. You are still the one in command. Her eyes softened slightly, though her pride remained. She realized he had created something extraordinary. But she also knew his presence reminded her that even as a ruler, there were forces beyond her control. As the combat simulation continued, Marcus introduced subtle challenges. He activated unstable energy zones and moving platforms, forcing the Queen to adapt mid-battle. The armor responded, shifting weight distribution and energy flow almost instinctively. At one point, she nearly stumbled, but the armor compensated, preventing a fall. She realized that the human had thought of everything, not only restoring the armor but enhancing it in ways Varelians would consider impossible. You take liberties, human, she said sharply, her voice cutting through the hum of energy. You change the design, test beyond my orders. You do not follow protocol. Marcus did not flinch. Protocol has its place. But sometimes the universe rewards those who take risks. The Queen's eyes narrowed. She wanted to reprimand him, to assert her authority. Yet she could not hide her growing admiration. He had not only restored her armor but also revealed new potential she had never imagined. After hours of training, the Queen paused, breathing steadily. The armor's energy levels remained stable, its systems functioning flawlessly. Marcus approached, wiping sweat from his forehead. You've done exceptionally well, he said. The armor responds beautifully. You move faster, hit harder, and sustain more than any previous suit. She looked at him, her eyes a mixture of respect, irritation, and something she had not felt in years. Curiosity. You humans, you challenge the way we think. Always pushing, always adapting. I both admire and resent it. Marcus smiled faintly. That's how we survive, Your Majesty. Adaptation is survival. Creativity is strength. The Queen stared at him, quiet for a long moment. Then she shook her head and muttered, Your audacity is infuriating. And yet effective, Marcus replied. Her lips pressed into a thin line. She turned away, walking toward the palace gates. But inside, she could not ignore the truth. The armor, once broken, was now more powerful than ever. And the human who had restored it was responsible. That evening, as the sun set, the Queen retired to her private chamber. She removed the armor, setting it carefully aside, and sat by the window looking at the sprawling city below. Marcus's words echoed in her mind. Humans, he had said, thrived on adaptation, creativity, and risk. They saw possibilities where others saw obstacles. A part of her resisted. She had ruled for decades, mastered strategy, and built her empire on discipline and order. Yet the Queen could not deny the results before her eyes. Marcus, a human, had done what her engineers could not. He had taken her legacy and made it stronger. She clenched her fists not in anger but in reflection. Perhaps her wrath toward him was less about disrespect and more about fear. Fear of realizing that a species she had long considered inferior could surpass expectations in ways she had never imagined. Meanwhile, Marcus returned to the workshop. He cleaned his tools, reviewed the armor's data, and made notes for further improvement. He knew the Queen's wrath was not fully spent. Humans thrived not just in creation, but in navigating challenge, and he anticipated more tests, more scrutiny, and perhaps more confrontation. But for now, the first real test had been a success. The armor performed beyond expectations, and the Queen, though still wary, had begun to acknowledge that humans might not be as limited as Varelians had believed. The evening air was calm, yet charged with possibilities. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new simulations, and perhaps new battles, and Marcus, the human engineer, was ready to meet them, armed with nothing but ingenuity, determination, and a quiet confidence that humans could achieve the impossible. For the Queen, the restored armor was more than a tool. It was a symbol of power regained, but also a reminder that even the greatest rulers could be challenged, even enlightened by a human mind. And in that thought lay both tension and anticipation, a storm that promised to change the Empire forever. The morning sky above the Varelian capital was bright, yet tension hung heavier than the sunlight. Scouts had reported movement in the outer sectors, unknown ships approaching at high speed. The Varelian Empire had faced threats before, but this fleet was unfamiliar, alien in design and aggressive in approach. Queen Seraphine stood on the balcony of her palace, her restored armor polished and ready nearby. She could feel the pulse of energy through the floor beneath her, humming like the heartbeat of her city. Behind her, Marcus monitored incoming data, his human mind calculating possibilities, assessing risk, and planning contingencies. "Human," the Queen said sharply, her eyes scanning the horizon. "These are not our usual adversaries."
"Can your armor withstand them?"
Marcus adjusted a display showing the projected attack vectors. "It can withstand them, if we use it smartly. But this isn't just about armor. It's about strategy, adaptation, and exploiting their weaknesses." The Queen's brow furrowed. "Explain." He pointed to a map of the incoming fleet. "Their formation is rigid. They rely on superior firepower and numbers. They expect predictable responses. That's where human thinking comes in. We do not respond predictably." She turned to him, intrigued despite herself. "You mean to fight them differently than a Varelian would?" Marcus smiled faintly. "Exactly. Use your strengths, yes, but also use your environment, their assumptions, and the armor's unique capabilities. Trust me, or at least trust the armor." The Queen's lips pressed into a thin line, both skeptical and curious. She had seen the armor perform in simulations. Now it would be tested in real combat, against a real threat. The first wave of alien ships entered the atmosphere. They descended in perfect formation, firing energy beams that scorched the outer districts. Panic spread quickly, but the Queen remained calm. She donned the restored armor, its adaptive servos whirring softly as she moved. Marcus activated auxiliary energy shields and guidance systems, linking them to the Queen's suit. "Move to the perimeter," he instructed. "Observe their patterns first. Then strike." The Queen leapt into the air, propelled by the armor's energy boosters. From above, she could see the enemy ships approach, their movements precise and predictable. She analyzed, then adjusted her course, weaving through their attacks with fluid grace. Each dodge and counter move felt natural, yet faster and more efficient than any previous battle. Marcus's eyes never left the display. "They rely on concentrated firepower," he explained. "Split their focus. Force them to adapt. Watch how they react. We'll use that against them." The Queen executed his advice, directing energy bursts to decoy targets, forcing the alien fleet to scatter and realign. The strategy worked. Their formation faltered, creating gaps she could exploit. But the aliens were clever. Their next wave attacked with swarming drones, small but fast, each capable of self-repair. The Queen dodged and struck, her armor's servos enhancing her reflexes. Yet she realized she could not handle them all alone. "Human," she said sharply, "these drones are overwhelming. We need another plan." Marcus leaned over the control console, his fingers moving rapidly. "We'll integrate the armor with the city's defense systems. Use the environment. Energy grids, transport tubes, and support drones. Everything. Turn the city into a weapon." The Queen's eyes narrowed. "You ask me to trust your human improvisation in the middle of battle?" Yes, Marcus replied simply. Trust the armor, trust me. Adapt as you fight. Her pride bristled, but she saw no alternative. She nodded once and leapt toward the swarming drones. Energy conduits in the armor flared as the city's systems synced with her suit. Drones collided with energy shields, were knocked back by kinetic pulses, or trapped in energy nets Marcus deployed remotely. The Queen moved like a storm, striking, dodging, and redirecting attacks. Even the elite guards trained for the best tactics could barely keep pace with her movements. And yet, her skill and Marcus's ingenuity complemented each other perfectly. The battle intensified. Larger alien ships began bombarding the city with concentrated energy blasts. The ground shook under the impact and smaller structures crumbled. Citizens evacuated, guided by the Queen's guards and Marcus's quick deployment of emergency systems. Your Majesty, Marcus called. Their shields are powered by fusion cores. We can overload them if you target their nodes simultaneously, but timing is crucial. The Queen studied the ships, analyzing weak points. Her restored armor enhanced her perception, highlighting energy flows in vulnerable areas. She leapt from building to building, dodging blasts while aiming precise strikes at the cores. A massive explosion rocked the city as one of the alien ships shattered under her attack. Sparks rained down, smoke rising into the sky. The Queen landed gracefully, her armor absorbing the shock. Excellent, Marcus said quietly. Now the others. The Queen wiped sweat from her brow, though her armor handled the heat and force easily. Human, she said, her voice calm but commanding. You have turned my city into a battlefield I can master. Yet I sense more is coming. Marcus nodded. There's always more. Adapt, improvise. Human ingenuity thrives in chaos, and so does this armor. The alien fleet regrouped, sending a concentrated assault toward the palace. The Queen knew this was the decisive moment. She moved toward the approaching enemy, her armor pulsing with energy. Marcus coordinated remotely, linking the palace defense turrets with her suit. Strike as one, he said. Energy pulses in sync with your attacks. Use the environment. Force them into traps. The Queen obeyed, striking at the enemy fleet while Marcus's strategies guided her. Alien ships collided into energy nets. Drones were ensnared and explosions lit the sky. The battle raged with incredible intensity, yet the Queen's calm determination and Marcus's strategic improvisation dominated the fight. For the first time, the Queen realized that human creativity, unpredictable, adaptive, and bold, and could surpass even the most rigid and experienced strategies of her empire. She did not like admitting it, but she respected it. The climax of the battle came when the largest alien ship, a massive vessel bristling with weapons, attempted to ram the palace. The Queen assessed its speed and trajectory, her restored armor enhancing her perception and reaction time. Marcus, she shouted. What now? He smiled faintly. We use the armor and the city as one. Lure it into the energy grids. Overload its systems. Timing is everything. She nodded, leaping toward the massive ship. Energy pulses flared from her suit, synchronized perfectly with city conduits Marcus controlled. The ship faltered as its systems overloaded, sparks flying across its hull. With one final strike from the Queen, the alien ship erupted in a brilliant explosion, falling harmlessly into the outskirts of the city. Silence followed the chaos. Smoke rose from the battlefield, but the city stood intact. The Queen's armor was unharmed, its energy systems stabilized. Citizens emerged cautiously, witnessing their ruler standing victorious, a beacon of strength and resilience. Marcus stepped forward, surveying the aftermath. Impressive work, Your Majesty. The armor performed beyond expectations, and so did you. The Queen turned to him, her expression unreadable. Pride warred with irritation. Respect warred with lingering wrath. She approached him, her steps firm. You have done well, human, she said finally. Your ingenuity has saved the Empire today. But remember this, your methods are bold, your ideas unconventional, and your presence challenges my authority. Do not mistake my respect for leniency. Marcus bowed slightly. Understood, Your Majesty. I work to protect, not to challenge. But I will always push limits. That is what humans do. A faint smile touched her lips, though she quickly masked it. Limits, she muttered. Perhaps you are right. Perhaps limits are meant to be tested. As the sun set, the Queen stood on her palace balcony, her armor reflecting the dying light. The battle had tested her, the armor and Marcus's ingenuity. It had revealed something profound. that human creativity, adaptability, and courage could rival the greatest strengths of her empire. The citizens cheered below, unaware of the intricate coordination between human and queen that had saved their city. The queen, however, knew the truth. Marcus had not just restored her armor, he had changed the way she saw strength, strategy, and the potential of humans. Marcus, meanwhile, returned to the workshop, already analyzing the armor's performance. Data streamed across his screens, highlighting successes and minor areas for improvement. He knew the Queen's wrath was far from gone, but he also knew that she had begun to see the value of human ingenuity. The night was quiet, but charged with possibilities. The restored armor had proven its worth, the Queen had survived the attack, and the humans had demonstrated their remarkable ability to adapt, improvise, and overcome. Tomorrow the Empire would face new challenges. But for tonight, victory belonged to the Queen, her armor, and the human who had dared to restore the impossible.